All right. Good evening. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'll call to order our Town Council work session for Tuesday, March 24th. Lopez is not here. I guess I will take the role. Robert Oxmacher, present. Councilmember Lake.
Here.
Councilmember Holt.
Here.
Councilmember Jenkins. Not present, and he replied no to the invite, so I guess that's expected. And Mayor Pro Tem Wagner.
Here.
All right, four of us are present. We will continue this evening on the work session. We have two items to discuss. The first is the Timnath Reservoir Master Plan, and then second is an update from Excel. We have 30 minutes allocated to each item. So we will begin with the Timnath Reservoir Master Plan. Director Excel.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for entertaining us as we go over the Timnath Reservoir Master Plan. This is the work session, and so right now the master plan is in draft form, and we're looking for feedback from council. With us today, we have Bram Barth. He is with Los Designs. He was hired at the tail end of 2025 to take on the master plan process. So we had our first meeting in October of last year, and we will let him take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for having the time here today. I am going to probably zip through a lot of this for sake of time. Really want to hear feedback from the group here, and Tom informed me everyone's seen the document, so for that I will go fast, but certainly stop me if I go over something that you wanted to stay on, or we can bring it up at the end with questions. So want to just open with a quick overview of project summary, the intent and the process of what we've done as a master plan. We're trying to create that vision, a shared vision and guide for what to do out at the Timnath Reservoir. And we did go through a pretty extensive process, site observation and multiple site visits. We reviewed previous initiatives and documents, so we weren't just starting from scratch on a lot of this. A big part of what we did was the staff and community engagement. We met with the public on 3 separate occasions, met with a stakeholder group, met with Prost on 2 occasions, so it was very important for us to get that community feedback and make sure that was getting implemented into the design. And then we did work through the planning and design, and on top of it, it's not just about the pie in the sky thinking. We do want to have an implementation strategy as part of that as well. So the master plan started very high level with values, vision, and mission, looking at the reservoir itself, talking to the staff, talking to the community about what they see as the value of the reservoir, and then the value that the reservoir kind of itself extols. So natural open space, various forms of recreation, remembering that it is a functioning reservoir, not just purely for recreation, the rural context, the identity of Timnath and how that relates to the site, and then also the citizens. Like I said before, really important to hear them out and meet their needs when they spoke up. So taking those values then, we assemble then the vision. Where do we want, or where do we see the reservoir going in the future, the extended future, not just immediately, but over 5, 10 plus years. And over what we heard were the 3 points that you see up there: bringing the outdoors to the citizens, providing a diverse range of opportunities. So you'll see in the design, we really try to maximize that diversity. And then also just having something that the citizens can be proud of, something they can point to as a jewel of the community, a jewel of recreation, and something they can really remember too as part of their community. Honing in then on the mission, how do we do that? The specific items kind of come out in the goals and the objectives, but the mission kind of sets the stage for those goals and objectives. So providing inclusive access to the recreation and educational activities, again, hitting on that diverse range of activities, remembering the role of the reservoir as a functioning agricultural resource, respecting nature, and then hearing out the citizens on their needs and wants. So I apologize, this slide, the text may be a little hard to read on the screen. It is obviously in the document. But from that mission, then we formulated 8 goals and objectives to really hone in on the specifics of what we want to achieve with the master plan. And then each one of these goals found its way into the design. And when we get to the implementation section, each one of these goals forms the foundation of why we did what we did with all of the designs. So goal 1 was the site pathways and enhancing the circulation system. One of the big things we did with the design is to finish off a lot of the existing paths out there, because that was something we heard the community really emphasizes. They love to walk. So we wanted to put that kind of at the top of our list. I can't say it enough, the diverse range of activities and focusing more on the land-based activities. Right now, a lot of the water recreation is really getting, recognized, but we wanted to see what we could do actually more land-based. Remembering that it is the functioning reservoir, so we still wanted to keep the lease in mind, continue that lease. Without that lease, we don't have the site. So we wanted, as one of our stakeholders, to talk to the Cash Pludry Ditch Company about, what they want to see and what we can do on their site. Goal 4, keeping future opportunities and limitations in mind. The first that comes to mind is Colorado Boulevard to the east is going to be widened, so we incorporated part of our path system to account for that. Also keeping in mind that there's a lot of development kind of being looked at in this area, residential development and subdivision, so we want to meet those needs. And then when we talk about the design itself, there's some intersection opportunities for getting access to the site that we wanted to look at, but we wanted to keep those future initiatives and opportunities in mind as part of the design. Always want to be fiscally responsible. Goal number 5, if you can't pay for it, you can't build it. So we want to be mindful of that in our design. And goal 6, promoting nature. Again, when people go out there to walk, even though it's a functioning agriculture site, birding is a huge activity out there, observing wildlife, so working that into the design as well. And then the last 2 goals, an element of any design we try to do, especially at the master plan level, is create an identity. And that can be done through simple gestures of material usages, signage usages, design themes carried throughout. But if we're trying to create a jewel, something that the community recognizes, having identity, one of the goals, is very important. And then the last thing, one of our stakeholder groups was meeting with students and teachers from, was it just Timnath Middle High School? Okay. And creating opportunities on site for those students to come out with programming and just also the general public as it's out there through educational signage. So the design itself, and again, I'm going to zip through this really quick. The 2 main highlights to point out that we really tried to emphasize here were what we heard from the community was finish the perimeter path. So by and far at the top of the list, there's existing pathways out there right now, but we wanted to finish that off. I believe, Tom, you said there is going to be some pathways going in this coming summer that we incorporated as part of this design.
Yeah, we do have some money this year to do some building of trails, but the others would be in subsequent years based off of council authorization of funds.
So finishing that perimeter path, but also working in a regional path that goes north-south. When I go to the enlargement, you'll be able to see it better, but essentially the goal is to connect Community Park to the school to the north. Let me go ahead here with the zoom in. So you can see the perimeter path is to the left. I wish I had a I have a pointer here? Maybe not. No, okay. Well, the perimeter path is going around the reservoir, but the regional path is the colored line there to the left, to the west of the entryway. The main entryway is repositioned to the new intersection on the right, but the perimeter path is that colored line to the left. And then that means that north-south connection. The enlargement here also shows then one of the big design elements that we're proposing is relocating the main entryway. And this was for two reasons. One, access to the site, you create a stronger intersection when you move that down directly across from the Harmony subdivision. So it really kind of hones in as a node of access both to the subdivision and the site. And what it also does is it opens up more access to the site. Right now, with the main entrance kind of being to the west side of the site, the current entrance labeled right now as maintenance, you kind of miss out on getting people to the eastern side of the site because when I first experienced it, I drove up that drive and I didn't even really know you could go off to the east right away. And then when I actually walked the site, I kind of understood better how to get over there. So by putting that over on the east side, that kind of opens up all of those lands that we can start getting that diverse range of design elements. And then from there, it really kind of just becomes the spine for all of those design features that the public came back to us and said they wanted. You have an off-leash area and a picnic area when you first enter the site. As you kind of wind around to the northwest, you eventually come up on a fitness loop, which is between the drive and the reservoir. We do offer a parking area then that gets you, it's labeled number 3 on the plan, takes you across one of the existing channels and gets you to some walking trails, which in an area right now is just open field. But again, people talked about walking. They love the perimeter site, but this gives them a different type of trail. More of a footpath trail, something earthy, crunchy, not just pavement. We still do maintain the large area, the number 6 parking area for the event parking. We know that's very important. But we do continue the path on around to another parking lot. I believe that's 5. And from there, there's a maintenance drive that spurs off to the south that connects to the existing entryway right now. We still want to keep that access for the ditch company, for events, in the major 4th of July event, that could act as a secondary entrance to get people in and out of the site, so not everyone is just going through one main entrance. Number 7 then, south of that parking lot is the bike park, or rather the pump track. Again, we heard from people that that's something they very much wanted. Further to the south is the archery range, another element that we heard from surveys and people that they wanted. And then from there, moving up to the north, we kind of tie back into the existing drive and all the existing features up in the main area. We do added few new features like playground, horseshoe pits, but I would say probably the biggest feature that gets added in this central area is number 13 and 12, the reestablished disc golf course and the sledding hill. So that's a very quick, I'm looking at my time here. I've got 3 more minutes. I'm trying to run through it all very quick, but the essence of design is create that new spine and then be able to sprinkle those different activities across the spine. And then just very quickly, we did want to touch on the implementation strategy. We want input from this group on the design, but if there are certain design elements that you feel are high priority, I'm not going to go through every priority element here today. That was in the report, but we did highlight it as a tier 1, 2, and 3, high, medium, low priority. Basically, tier 1 talks about getting elements that are essential for the other elements to grow. You can't really install some of the design features until you get that main drive. Tier 2 are the elements that make the park, make the reservoir more diversified, but it may not be critical just yet that they come in. And then tier three, a lot of the tier 3 elements are the secondary paths, the pavilions, the picnic areas, things that aren't truly necessary, but if you have the money and you can do it, go ahead. So this is just a copy of the overall site where we've called it out and color-coded it according to the tier 1, 2, and 3 colors. All of this relates back, as you saw in the report, to the tables that talk about cost and how they relate to the goals and objectives. And then on the enlargement, again, we also color-code it. So all of these elements are shown kind of in their priority. So very quick and dirty. Again, I apologize if I'm talking too fast here, but I do want to afford the group time to give feedback. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that. Tom, are you with some other stuff, or should we jump into questions, or?
Yeah, we want to give you guys plenty of time to ask questions, give us your feedback and comments. Because the plan after this is we're actually going to have this out on your Timnath for a week or 2 weeks. We'll work with Ben to work on the logistics of that. Then we'll take that feedback, the feedback from you, we'll come up with a final plan and bring it to council for adoption down the road.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I found the report to be very informative, and certainly it's nice to have some priorities laid out as well as some ideas there. I don't know, council questions?
Can we go back to the map, fun part? Yeah, either one of those, or the other one. That's so. One, I mean, comments. I think this is great. I think you took a lot of feedback. I think the interactive boards, put a dot here. What do you like? I mean, all that you can see is come to life. So it's full circle, which is awesome to see. Just a couple questions in aspects like the fitness loop where it says stations, equipment. Can you maybe give me an example of what that would be? Are we talking like pull-up bars or just like break points, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it would just be simple equipment like pull-up bars, or it wouldn't be anything too elaborate.
Sure.
In the report, the character imagery that we gave tried to take on the more of a rustic or a timber, not like you see playground equipment out there, stuff like that, but you can use more of like timbers with the metal bars to do the pull-ups. But it would not be anything, because we feel that would kind of detract from like the feel of what the park is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we would want to try to keep it
It's not
simple.
Venice Beach.
Right.
Fair enough. And then the other piece, so in the swim area, I know there was, just thinking back to the pictures and, they had the inflatables, which looked super cool and stuff like that. Do we see that swim area being, water trampolines, stuff like that along the lines, or just for now, just a swim area? And if so, is that a staff requirement too for lifeguards, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so we did talk about it initially, but it's not something that we'd probably want to consider just because of we would need to hire staff.
Got it.
Lifeguards, it brings in a whole other liability aspects of it. As we dive deeper into it, I mean, if it's something, it still could be up for consideration, but I think it would be in our best interest to maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, the super cool aspect of it, I think there's a lot of potential risk and additional things needed. So would that be then just a roped out area, swim at your own risk type setup?
Yeah, it'll be similar to what it is now. It'll just be enlarged a little bit.
Does that require, I mean, we're already letting people go in there with paddle boards and the whole 9 yards, so no real extra burden when it comes to allergy, testing and water levels and all that stuff, right?
No,
We're already doing all that?
No, but everything will stay the same with that. Just like I said, we're taking what we're currently doing and just expanding it.
Okay, awesome. Those are all my questions. Looks great.
Related to the liability, I know this came up at the Prost Committee about having the archery range. Does that have, tell me a little bit about that. And also, I do know that there's one across I-25 not super far from here.
You want me to start, or?
Sure.
Oh, the archery range, honestly, for something that is a sort of simple design element, was the one that we put a lot of thought into. We had like 4 or 5 locations, and almost every one of them, I mean, they all had pros and cons, right? And so the main reason we kind of landed on this area right here was safety, not shooting the arrows into where a pathway or shooting them. At one point, we kind of had it over by the off leash area, but we as much as we well, it wasn't pointed at the off leash area, I should say that, but it was kind of pointed more to the northeast, and it was like, you know, the original thought was it was at the bottom of the embankment, and so you'd have to like not only shoot far but up, but we were still like the safety there, man, we don't really want to risk that, so we landed on where it's at now. It's actually aimed to the southwest, so the con on that is technically kind of pointing towards the road, but if you can berm it up, get some barriers in there, and also keep in mind, you know, maybe put some signage on restrictions on the exact type of bows you use. I mean, people may still come out there and do what they want, but thought was definitely put into the best location, the safest location, and an accessible location. Did I miss anything, Tom?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, and like I said, we maybe not get hung up on that exact location, because obviously when it comes time to really design it, there'll be, you know, this is the high level master plan portion of it, where we tried to put a lot of the stuff in there, and we did hear people that want that. So there would probably be some tweaking, you know, depending on how things go, and that seems to be the good fit now. But when we actually go and fund it to build it, which would be 5 years down the road maybe, or who knows how long, things may change out there where we'll have to look at maybe an alternate location or change the location. So it shows where a general idea, just so we want to make sure that we capture that, but there would be a lot more work that would go into it before we settled on final design.
And even that too, the placement of it, it was placed in a location that honestly, if you take it off the plan, it doesn't ruin the plan, or there's nothing hinging on the archery range being installed there.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily talking about the location. I just meant generally as a community, as a town, does that increase our liability, or does it require higher rates of insurance, or like that's kind of where I was as far as the location. I definitely understand that a master plan is a overarching image, and that details will be worked out later. So I think it was more just generally speaking, does that change anything for the town?
Go ahead.
So Tom, our utilization of the reservoir right now is right now 4th of July and kind of the water activities right now. Does this change any of our events for Timnath in the future? Do we see that changing in the future if we roll out this master plan in any way? Like, would we?
So one of the main reasons for staffing the reservoir at this point is to make sure that motorized boating is probably key out there, making sure that we're inspecting the boats for aquatic nuisance species, but then just in general, keeping that. One of the things we want to do is kind of expand the hours, the shoulder seasons a little bit longer. So when the water activities go away, there's still activities out there for people to do. So in turn, we could potentially keep staff longer out there. As far as, I don't know if I'm pretty sure I just did not answer your question, so.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at this, like, I'm just wondering, like utilization right now of the reservoir, and obviously looking at this master plan, obviously the utilization of the reservoir would increase. But
And we've already seen it increase when we opened up that trail from Wild Wing through.
Okay.
The amount of people using it has significantly increased. And I think the more trails and more accessibility that we do, we're going to see it increase even more.
Okay, but as far as like our town events, this is more this is kind of separate of our town events. This is more just utilization, kind of in our goals, looking back here. This is to connect back to activities, but nothing to do with our events in any way.
Correct. So, Susie, if you notice, we hardly touched Area 8 and Area 6. Area 6 is the parking, and Area of 8 is the event space with maybe putting some sort of a natural playground over there. But
Okay.
we wanted to preserve that, and that's another thing with the archery range. You could actually remove the targets and still have that for overflow parking.
Okay.
So a lot of thought has been given into making sure that we still have the ability to host those large events out there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we're about out of time on this item, but I did want to pass along a couple thoughts and feedback. Of course, we don't own the reservoir land, we lease it. And that lease goes through 2031 with 2 5-year renewal options there. I think that we probably want to be mindful of what sort of investments we make out there, knowing that there's currently an end time to that lease. So I think it probably makes sense to have some discussions about the future of that lease and can that be renegotiated. That's just something for me that, but before we put a lot of money into it, I'd want to make sure that we had a plan there. And then, of course, these improvements, will eventually go into the capital improvement plan. And we've got a lot of recreational things happening in there now, whether it's Peanut Park, the rec center, obviously, some improvements at Community Park. We've got another phase of Wild Wing slated, so it's not a discussion for today, but at some point I think we have to figure out how all of those gets paid for and prioritized. But thank you very much to all of you for your work on this. I think this is very helpful. Anything else before we move on?
I'll just add one quick piece, because the Prost Committee did look at, I can't even remember, my guess is it wasn't this exact one, but they did look at some ideas and some of the feedback they had given. That we did talk a little bit about the cost and us not owning. And then quite a few of the members really wanted to keep a lot of the area natural looking. I know some of the earlier things had some grassy areas and areas where the Prost Committee thought we could just leave it more natural. So that was just one of the things that they mentioned, as well as I know we had talked about outdoor educational opportunities, and they all thought that that was something that was kind of needed as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to our second agenda item for the work session, which is an update from Excel. Mr. Rodvik, I believe, is here, and Mr. Adams, I think, Manager Adams, I think this is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a request from Hans and Excel to come and give just a brief presentation. I think there was actually some interest from the council side as well for this meeting to happen. So I will get out of the way, especially in the interest of time, let Hans get to his presentation. And we're going to try and do similar to the one you just had, to carve out 10 or so minutes there at the end to allow for questions.
That was great, Mr. Rodvik. Thank you so much for being here. I know that Excel has been a discussion point amongst a lot of our community members, and it's really great that you're here tonight to share some information with us. I did want to thank you, but before we get started, while some folks have certainly had frustrations with some of the power shutoffs, I really do appreciate the communication from Excel, and whether obviously you're happy or not about your power being shut off, I really want to thank you personally for your communication as we went through all that. So, welcome.
Okay, let's see here. We'll get this figured out. Right way? Other way. Okay. Oh, there we go. Too far. Woo! That'd be really fast. I don't think I can talk that fast. Okay, perfect. Yep, that's the start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate the time here. Thanks, Aaron and staff, for helping get this So my name's Hans Rodvik. I'm the area manager with Excel Energy here in Northern Colorado. My job is to be the liaison between our communities across the region and obviously Excel. So just happy to be here and talk about some of the things we're doing in the wildfire mitigation front, but definitely want to leave time for questions. So I'm going to buzz through this pretty quick and provide a high level here. So super high level, Excel, this map here kind of generally overlays our service territory across the state. And as part of that, we have kind of broken the state up into three main areas of wildfire risk. These tiers are based on criteria that we've used and analyzed in conjunction with a lot of external data. So we've kind of broken it down into those three tiers. Timnath, I was just looking, is all in within that tier 2 region of a risk zone for wildfire. So stepping back, we're a publicly regulated utility, one of the three or four here in the state that are operated and regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. So when we have big initiatives or big plans, we have to go before them to get approval, which is what we started in 2024. And this wildfire mitigation plan that you see up here on the slide was approved unanimously, which is really great, in 2025. And we started executing on this plan. It's a nearly $2 billion investment over the next 3 years. The vast majority of those dollars are going to be actually improving things in the field. So whether that's wildfire pole replacements, targeted undergrounding, putting weather systems or weather data stations out in the field for us to watch what's happening in real time. It's going to be deployed actually out in the field to make the system safer and more resilient. And so we kind of have these various buckets of where that funding is going to go here. And we'll get into that in a little bit in a second here. But what it relates to from a really high level is we're seeing, obviously with the winter like this, coming into the summer peak season where we're going to probably see more wind, drier conditions, obviously higher temperatures. We have various tools in our toolbox to mitigate wildfire risk. At the very end there, you see the PSPS, the four-letter word, Public Safety Power Shutoffs, which is really that last line of defense for us to prevent starting a wildfire from any of our assets. So this, I think, I'm a visual guy, so this to me really helps, right? You have a community, you have a town, you have a city, you have a region, and all of our assets are intertwined there, right? Down in that bottom left-hand corner, you'll see those big transmission lines. Those are going to be coming from a generation facility, so a power plant or maybe a wind farm or a solar facility. Then they're going to get tied into those substations. The substations help regulate the power and then push it out onto the distribution system, which is what all of us rely on for our homes and our businesses. That's really where the real risk is when it comes to wildfire interfacing with utility facilities, is at that distribution system level. And so that's where we're making the most investments to harden the system, make it safer, install devices to protect and to try to isolate, city-type areas with some of those more rural areas. So across the system and across the state, we've put up, early detection cameras, the weather data systems, like I mentioned, and doing a lot more here over the next 3 years. So a couple years ago, this was our total for 2024, 8,300 distribution poles replaced, a lot of poles inspected, many thousands of miles that were visually inspected, and a lot of vegetation management. Here in the Timnath region, I did double check. All of the feeders in this area actually received vegetation management, which is essentially tree trimming per our standards back in 2025, or we'll be completing that work going into 26. So talking a little bit about the enhanced power line safety settings and the public safety power shutoffs, which we executed in December and in January. Enhanced power line safety settings, these are a tool that essentially most folks would never know about unless you're kind of in a more windy day and power de-energizes. We put these settings in place on our power lines Generally, you can think of it as if you see a red flag warning day, the power lines in the area are most likely in these settings. What that means is they're more sensitive. So if the wind starts picking up and the line starts slapping, the lines will turn off. And power for folks will remain off until we send a crew out there to visually inspect the power lines. In some instances, this has led to more frequent outages and those longer durations, but it's meant in the interest of public safety to ensure that we don't turn power back on if a line is actually down. So then we get to the PSPS. And I know there's been a lot of questions about how do we make these decisions, what criteria goes into them, what are kind of the specific categories of when we do them, when we don't. 3 main buckets. It's got to be quite windy. We have to have super low humidity, under 20%, and then fuel moisture. What's the condition of the fuels, right? You know, kind of what's happened over the last number of weeks. And as we know, this is basically the driest winter on record. And so those conditions unfortunately led to 3 different events in December and in January for us. So just a comparison, some of the communities have experienced more consternation, I would say, with the EPSS settings, where when we first rolled those out in 2024, there were a lot of outages. We refined those tools and made some substantial improvements where that's not as much of a concern, but it was when we first rolled them out. And then the public safety power shutoffs are very clear, delineated shutoffs that we do with a lot of advanced warning and notice to customers and communities. So obviously, up in that high risk, that upper quadrant, you see high outage, high ignition, red flag warning days. I think in December and in January, the National Weather Service put out an announcement that they have never put out, which was a particularly dangerous wildfire risk during those 2 events when we had 80 to 115 mile an hour winds in different parts of the state here along the Front Range. So we have a whole team of wildfire meteorology folks. We're getting constant data and input from the systems that we have actually out in the field. And so we're looking normally at least a week out in advance. When we see a weather system come in, the team will start getting stood up at about that 72-hour mark. If we're starting to see some of those criteria align in the negative direction, we're going to start notifying our offices of emergency management. We notify Larimer County, Well County, and then in some of our bigger towns and cities, the local OEMs. After that, we'll start refining the scope, and then I'll start reaching out to Aaron. You'll start getting the emails or calls or texts from me. And then in that phase is when we start going public, right? We're going to have social media. We're going to have website updates. Customers are going to get emails and text messages. And I know there were some kind of mishaps where some folks were getting texts, potentially being in the outage versus out of the outage. Human, we make mistakes. We're trying to get those systems improved and better as we have to use these tools. As we get into that 0 to 24 hour, 24 to 0 hour mark, a lot more preparation, trying to narrow that scope of how many customers are going to get impacted. And then we do the de-energization. And we kind of watch and wait, right, to see what happens during the event. In January, we had over 100 crews. Those are 3 to 4 man crews stationed up here, and they were taking care of ongoing outages throughout the day. And then once weather conditions improved, we send crews on those lines that were de-energized to visually inspect and then turn power back on. Again, this is just kind of an overview of the playbook of how we do communications, and this is actually all governed by what we did file in that wildfire mitigation plan before the PUC. So it's, we made these commitments, but the regulators also hold us accountable. So January 16th, feels like an eternity ago, but this was the initial scope. It was about 20,000 customers up here between kind of 4 main areas. Wellington got removed about the day before. We were able to slightly refeed them from a different feeder for about 4 hours, and then the wind picked up. And then that feeder tripped, and they were off. So The initial customer count was roughly 9,000, including Timnath. This is a map of where our weather data stations are across kind of the front range area here. And you'll see those wind speeds slowly tick up throughout the day. This was at 7 a.m., 9 and 10 a.m. Start seeing the red text appear, which was, the critical criteria is being met. Just continue to pick up and go in the wrong direction for us. By 3 p.m., 5 p.m., gusts were getting pretty wild. I don't know if our weather, the station up in Wellington got knocked out at that 5 p.m. mark. So then things started to calm back down that night, and we were able to get crews out. The criteria, unfortunately, is that we can't send the guys out in the bucket trucks up when the wind's blowing 40 or more. So it's kind of this weird waiting game where we have to be really safe and smart about before we can send them out. This was a kind of a recap of the cost and the damage that we encountered during that event. And it was a pretty substantial storm for us. Many of the different categories of poles and cross arms and transformers were 4 to 5x what we normally see during a regular storm. I'll kind of breeze through these. As just, again, everything was above record for the most part for what we saw. A lot of higher impact pieces of equipment were actually taken out of our Fort Collins Service Center, which Timnath is served from. The lessons learned, right? What went well, we were able to try to refine that scope and keep things a little bit more narrow than we originally had originally forecasted. Everybody was restored that evening, which I think is obviously a win. But then again, some of the issues with the outage map and the conflicting communication, we don't want to do these more, but every time something like this happens, we learn a lot and try to improve. This is just how folks can obviously be prepared for types of for outages and any sort of big storm or event where they potentially might lose power. And then one of the things I wanted to end with on a positive note is that we recently rolled out a battery rebate program. So for folks who are in Tier 2 or Tier 3 wildfire risk zones, which is Timnath, they have a medical device in the home. They can contact us and work through a installer and get a $10,000 rebate for installing a battery system in their home. So it's a limited program, but we're trying to get the word out, especially to our communities where PSPS events have happened. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that background. That's very informative. And I'll pass the baton here in just a second. But probably the most frequent question I've heard from our residents is we have multiple power providers in Timnath, and why is it that Excel customers are having these proactive shutoffs and other providers are not? Can you maybe help understand what the difference is there?
Yeah, it's complicated, and there's a couple different directions to it, but we take the wildfire mitigation stuff super seriously. Obviously, being the state's biggest utility, we have a lot of scrutinization for how we operate and the way that our systems are impacted during storms. And our leadership is just super committed to ensuring public safety. Our current CEO came from California, where he was with PG&E and lived through the disasters out there with the Paradise fires. And I think just top down between our different operating states here in Colorado and in Texas and even in Minnesota, the team has just really looked at the risk for what the company faces and the public safety risk that can be impacted when a wildfire happens, when you're 70 or 90 or 100 mile an hour winds. So it's just become something that we're forefront and center. We're trying to lead on. We obviously don't want to lead on turning power off. But as you notice by that mitigation plan, it's a very comprehensive approach we're trying to make to eliminate the need for those PSPS events.
So, Hans, I have two questions for you. The first is, if we have a pole that goes out Timnath and it's an older pole, what are they replaced with? Like, do we get a new pole? Do they go to a different pole? How are they replaced?
Yeah, so they're going to be replaced with whatever the latest pole is that we have. You know, generally, lifespan for a pole I've heard is about 12 years, 12 to 15 years potentially. But they're going to be replaced with a new wooden pole. You know, and we do those, you know, for cost efficiency perspectives. You know, in certain areas around the country, right, you've seen requirements to go all concrete. You know, down in Florida where they get a lot of hurricanes and things of that nature. But we're trying to balance, you know, customer rates and the bills that everybody feels. So we replace it with a new modern wooden pole and put it back in the ground.
What's it cost to bury a line?
So it's a good question. We get that question a lot. As part of the wildfire mitigation plan, we've committed to doing 50 miles of targeted undergrounding around the state. Not a lot, but it's a step in the right direction. The cost comparison is if you're gonna install a mile of overhead line, it's anywhere between $1 to $3 million for that mile. If you're gonna do underground, it's 3 to 6. So it's anywhere between 2 to 3 times the cost, depending on the terrain and the conditions, and obviously working with different landowners and jurisdictions. So 2 to 3x for an undergrounding.
And sorry, one more question. So for Timnath, how many substations do we have, and how are we fed for power?
Another good question. I was checking out our maps here before I came up. There are 3 substations around Timnath that bring power or directly supply the residents. So you have our Cobb Lake substation, kind of northwest of you guys, going up I-25 and just a little east. Avery, which is pretty close, just northeast of town here, and then the Windsor substation, which is actually more or less in that kind of rail yard area by Windsor. So there's different feeders that come out of each one of those, and they all are tied together. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The key here, and I know most of Timnath, you know, from a residential perspective, is underground, right? Newer community, you guys have grown and been built up here over the last 10, 15 years. Nobody sees power lines in their neighborhood, so they wonder, well, why is my power off, right? Well, the unfortunate thing is substation might be 3 to 8 miles away, and those feeders that all cut through county roads, farm fields, back roads are all overhead. And that's the crux. That's that disconnect that folks might not see.
So is it possible for substations to be, is it possible for one substation to have these planned power outages differently, or would they all be turned off at the same time? How would that possible? So even between neighborhood to neighborhood, parts of Timnath to have those as well?
Yeah, it just depends on where we think the weather is going to come through and what the models show, because everything is relatively close here. I'd have to go back and double check which particular feeders were impacted, but I think a majority of them were.
Okay.
I know the Avery one, I know the Cobb Lake, which then also feeds Wellington, and then that Windsor, one of the Windsor ones that actually comes up the railroad tracks and goes all the way into Fort Collins. So that's a big one. But we're between you guys and Windsor and Wellington, our engineering team is working on assessing things up here in this area that's been impacted over the last few times, and we're trying to put together a plan to say, what can we do to sectionalize? Where can we put devices that would stop? You know, we could turn off out kind of in the rural areas and try to keep folks on in the more residential areas. We're trying to get there, but it's obviously a big lift.
Thank you.
And I appreciated all the questions over email. You can call me anytime.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the mayor's question. I had the same question written down. I think you answered it great, but I think we can all assume that whether it's Poudre Valley, REA, or other providers aren't just winging it, and they're not taking the approach of not gonna, it's okay to take the risk. I think the bigger question is the grid capacity and the grid quality, is what I hear. I've had the same question as I'm sure all of us have. What is Excel doing to improve their grid capabilities? Because if it was me and just speaking my thoughts, I don't think it's a supervisor's cautionary. I think it's got more to do with the ability or lack of ability to turn on or turn off certain areas. So maybe explain what Excel is doing with their funds to improve the grid and make it more accessible to Mayor Pro Tem's point of maybe pocket choosing areas of a risk as opposed to shutting off an entire town.
It's a good question, Councilmember. So between our wildfire mitigation plan and a few of the other plans that we have either filed or in the process of filing with the PUC, we are slated to invest north of $22 billion here in Colorado over the next 5 years. The vast majority of that work is at the distribution level. So substations, new feeder lines, new equipment, new transformers. A lot of that is meant, obviously, to keep up with the growth, to build out capacity for future demand. But under the wildfire mitigation plan, I mean, that is all nuts and bolts, safety, replacements. We are actively and aggressively looking at replacing equipment ahead of its life cycle. So that means relays, fuses, transformers. And then I think that's sectionalizing and putting these specific devices that can be controlled by our folks at our
Recording in
control center.
progress.
The goal of those is to ensure that we get more narrow and just continue to have that refined scope. So, we're trying to lead the way here in Colorado when it comes to the money we're actually putting back into the system, and we're definitely not sitting on the sidelines.
No, absolutely. Where do you see it? You said there's 4 main or whatever the total number is. What do you see your competition doing? Are they having to scramble and do these puzzle pieces as well and these investments, or have those already been made, or is it just Excel trying to catch up, or where do you see that happen?
No, I don't want to speak for other companies or other entities, but we are 100% leading the way on this in Colorado. Other entities don't have the same level of resources and financial capacity that we do. Right? We operate across 8 states and have a network where we're constantly raising money on Wall Street and things of that nature. A rural REA, it doesn't have those same capacities, right? They're a nonprofit, member-driven co-op. And so we've seen some others, Tri-State and some of the other folks that operate in the more rural areas and have systems that are in some pretty high-risk areas are starting to beef up their wildfire teams. But across the entire West, I mean, this particular segment of the utility business it's growing, but it's in a heightened level of awareness. We've hired, I can't even tell you how many people we've hired to man these type of systems and work on these things, and we've built out a whole team to do designs for undergrounding our facilities. So it's a full court press from us.
I think that the cheapest fix, if you can just get us some rain and snow,
Yes.
all this will go away.
Yeah, just keep praying for rain and snow. The clouds are looking a little nice, but they don't have any moisture in them. So.
Thank you. We appreciate what you're doing.
I was wondering if you could touch a little bit more on, I know you mentioned a $10,000 rebate for batteries for those who might need medical devices. I don't know how much those batteries cost. Obviously, they're a lot if you're giving $10,000. Are there other things that Excel can help with for those families that do need some extra help for the medical devices? I know my next door neighbor, they have an elderly parent living with them who is on oxygen. And, when they know that it's coming, they try to scramble around to get the portables and things like that. But we never know how long power is going to be out for and things like that. So can you either give a little bit more about that rebate or talk about what other options people may have?
Yeah, sure. So I'll make sure you guys all have the link and the information for the rebate to send out to your constituents. So we rolled that out here over the last couple weeks. Sounds like that resident definitely qualify for it. You know, oxygen machines are probably like the number one thing that we think about when it comes to helping folks with medical devices. So again, I'll make sure you guys have that. I think we're probably going to see a lot more push in this space from the regulators to say, hey, you guys need to do more. One of the things is we need folks who have medical devices to opt into our system and to tell us that they are on a medical device, they're on a CPAP, an oxygen machine, or something of that nature. And then that way they're going to get that advance notice. So anybody who opts in will have notice at that 72-hour mark. So it gives them more time to prepare and to plan accordingly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we've about run out of time, but I know Mayor Pro Tem has been emailing with you directly. You've had a lot of communication, which I appreciate. I think all of council has your contact info, so if there are additional questions, I encourage folks to reach out to Hans, and we really appreciate you taking time to come and chat with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate you all.
Council, why don't we take just 5 minutes here, and then we'll convene our normal meeting, so we'll adjourn the work session. Testing. All right. Good evening and welcome back. We'll call to order the Tuesday, March 24th regular Timnath Town Council meeting. Salvez, will you take the roll?
Yes, of course. Mayor Robert Axmacher,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Luke Wagner,
Here.
Council Member Jeremy Holt,
Here.
Council Member Bill Jenkins, Council Member Lisa Lake.
Here.
All right, 4 council members are present. We have a quorum, so we will move on. Are there any requests to amend the agenda this evening? All right. Seeing none, then we will move on to our first item, which I'm very excited about, which is recognition of one of our local residents. If I could ask Nicole to come up here, please. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nicole Ganta, who just recently won the Colorado State Spelling Bee. He is a state champion, but he also 4 years in a row has won the Poudre School District Spelling Bee, which is what allowed him to advance on to state. The state competition, as I understand it, was pretty intense. You survived 55 rounds, is that right? That is amazing. And the first 35 rounds had any number of candidates, but the last 20 rounds were just you and another youth, right? So 20 rounds back and forth. Absolutely amazing. As I understand it, the winning word, and counsel anyone who knows the definition, this is a test. The winning word, amaxophobia. Do we have any phobiacs in the, yeah. Did you want to tell us what it means?
Yeah, fear of riding in a car.
Maxophobia, fear of riding in a car. Very good, very good. Well, Nikhil, as I understand it, studies 4 hours every day. Is that right? That is amazing. His mom, who is here, has been his primary spelling instructor, as well as his 4th grade teacher, Michelle Whitcomb, is here, and also you want to make sure that we acknowledge her. When Nikhil is not in school studying or spelling, he enjoys cricket and playing video games. Glad that you get to have some fun there, and aspires to be an attorney one day. So, watch out there. Very good. Your next competition, as I understand it, is the National Spelling Bee. Is that right? And that's May 26th through 28th in Washington, D.C. All right. Well, Nikhil, we are very, very proud of you. And I wanted to, on behalf of council, present you with this with the certificate here. Proudly honoring Nikhil Ganta, 2026 Colorado State Spelling Bee champion and 4-time consecutive Poudre School District Spelling Bee champion. So, congratulations. And I understand you wanted to share a few words as well, so.
Hello. I would like to thank the town of Timnath and Mayor Axmacher for this honor today. I want to extend a special thanks to Mr. Phil on the Planning Commission for always cheering me on and recognizing my successes. Additionally, I would like to thank my mom for coaching me and always pushing me to be better. Finally, I would like to thank my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Whitcomb, for supporting me through this endeavor. This has been an unforgettable journey, and I hope this recognition will inspire more kids in Timnath and Fort Collins to love words and learning.
Very good. Thank you for that. Thank you for joining us today. And if it'd be all right with you, I'd love to get a photo with all of our council here. Let me hold that.
And come back when you win the national championship too. We'll do it all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next, we will move on to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council on any items related to the town that don't otherwise have an opportunity for participation. This evening, we have 2 items that are scheduled for public hearings. Item 8A, the resolution dealing with Ladera South Subdivision Final Plat, and Ordinance 7, Series 2025, concerning financing related to the rec center. So if you'd like to speak on those items, I would ask you to wait until we call those. But otherwise, it appears that we have one individual signed up this evening. So I'll invite Mr. Dennis Strakota. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Dennis Strakota, resident at 5051 Brule Drive in the Trailside neighborhood. So I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and other members of the Citizens Committee for the Timnath Recreation Center. And I want to say that we're pleased to see the first major contract for the center being awarded tonight. We and the center's many supporters across the community look forward to its completion and opening in 2028. So I realize I only have 3 minutes, so I just want to highlight a couple of things for you. I think the contract is fantastic, and that we'll have a great recreation center as a result. I do have a couple concerns that I think it might be worthy of the council to consider. One, the scope of services and the firm's response to the RFP refers to the impact on Old Town, but there isn't any time or dollars allocated to examining what the connection will be or potentially could be to Old Town and specifically Main Street. And I know you all supported the placement of the rec center in the downtown, specifically to see what it could contribute to the revitalization of Old Town. I think it would behoove the town to provide for some additional funds for either the contractor or a subcontractor to take a look at ways to energize and implement some changes on Main Street and other parts of Old Town as a result of the rec center being located there. Secondly, I know that, and this is quite typical, I've gone through this myself, that town staff will be exclusively responsible for managing the contract. I have experience, if nothing else, witnessing construction management contracts, general contractor contracts in other communities. And there's a danger in doing relying entirely on staff to do some of that work. Specifically, usually you want to have somebody who has some expertise to be able to validate the costs associated with the guaranteed maximum price and serve as a primary liaison between the CMGC and the architect to resolve differences. I've gone through at least a couple of projects where when that wasn't done, there were some major problems afterward. I know we'll be able to come within budget, but the difficulty is going to be, are we going to have some operational problems as a result? And I can provide you an example of one instance where I'm quite aware of where that created a problem, but it's almost too graphic to explain. Let me just just describe it very briefly. It was creating a jail on top of office space, above office space. And it was space that we shared with, the county shared with a city. And because there were too many change orders that were never resolved, what happened afterwards as a result of some plumbing problems literally ended up in the mayor's lap. So those kinds of things can happen, and I think they need to be carefully construed. Lastly, the other thing is there's a reference in the contract to sustainability, but I don't see any reference at all to green building design. And I don't think it's necessary to think about LEED certification, but certainly I think it would be worthy to ask the architect whether or not, how much effort would be placed on trying to address concerns, given that, we're facing an era of scarce water resources, rising energy prices, and, the more frequent spread of communicable diseases.
Thank you, Mr. Stakota.
So,
Appreciate your
thank you
thoughts
so
today.
much.
I don't have anyone else who has signed up, but I will ask, is there anyone present that did not get a chance to sign up but would like to speak this evening? All right, I don't see anyone, so we'll now move on to our consent agenda this evening, which consists of 3 items. First, approval of the March 10th Town Council meeting minutes. Second, Resolution 19, Series 2025, resolution approving the work order with Wilson and Company Incorporated, engineers and architects for Timnath Parkway to Busgrove to Main Street Construction Administration Services. And finally, item 5C, a resolution approving the construction contract with Mill Brothers Landscape and Nursery for the redesign and build of the entrance of Timnath Community Park. Council, any requests to pull an item from the consent agenda? Okay. Then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? The consent agenda will be approved. We will now move on to mayor and council reports. Begin with council this evening. Councilmember Lake, anything? Councilmember Holt?
No, I'll just thank the League of Women Voters. I got to, as well as several of us, got to attend the forum with the 3 candidates running for council. It was very well put together, very well attended. 3 candidates did a great job, but I always like to thank them for putting that on here at Town Hall.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I was going to say the same thing. Thanks to League of Women Voters for putting on the candidate forum. Very well attended. I think that we had a packed house, and I want to thank everybody who watched virtually.
Yes, on that same note, just a reminder, the election is April 7th. I believe ballots have pretty much hit the mailboxes. So if you have not had a ballot turn up, definitely contact our clerk's office to look into that, and be sure to vote by mail. You can also drop them off in the ballot box in front of Town Center, but they must be in by 7 p.m. on April 7th. And then-
Mayor, if I may, if anybody has not received or is a newly registered voter, they can come and pick up an extra, not an extra, a new ballot here. We had that happen today, so there are no votes that are not able to be counted. Some of our registered voters have not received it, and we don't want that to happen, so we have some extra here.
Thank you. And then lastly, I just wanted to congratulate both our boys and girls high school basketball teams who made the Final Four and represented our town very well. So very, very proud of them for that, and look forward to next season. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Department reports. We begin with Community Development Director Robinson.
Mayor, council members, apologies for not having a report in the packet. I was on vacation. I don't have any updates, nothing to report. Typically, we do have, include building report for year to date. We're about on pace as we were last year with the number of permits that we've been at. And we have some community engagement with our comprehensive plan coming up tomorrow night. We have an open house, and we have some focus group discussions tomorrow morning and Thursday. So that's my update. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great, thank you. And the public session is here at Town Center tomorrow
Town
night
Center.
at what time?
Kickoff at 4:30, I think, till 7.
And that's, it's kind
In
of,
the
you can
community
drop in whenever, you don't have to be right here at 4:30?
Correct, it's an open house, yep.
Great.
And there are opportunities to do some online engagement as well.
Council, any questions? All right, thank you, sir. On to Public Works, Director Stone.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one thing. Tomorrow, we will be swapping out the cabinet at Whitesell and Harmony. That's going to allow us to have enhanced capabilities traffic-wise moving forward. So just wanted to make the public aware of that, especially maybe to avoid the intersection around mid-morning to maybe middle afternoon. So I don't have any other updates unless you have any questions.
Thank you. And I did note that in the report is the Pulse monthly report, so appreciate that. And if anyone's curious about our deployment progress there, it looks like things are going well. So, thank you. Anything for Public Works? Parks and Rec.
Just wanted to reiterate from the work session that we'll have the Timnath Reservoir Master Plan up on your Timnath by the end of the week, and we'll have it open for 2 weeks for public comment. And then also it's getting to be reservoir season, so people have gotten their permits, and so we're starting to see folks show up. And then the first day of motorized boating will be Thursday, April 2nd. So it's almost time.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Is it going to require a login? I know I've talked to you about that before, where people are less likely to want to log in to complete a survey. And so is there a way we can make it so that they don't have to sign in? I know I personally don't like to have to sign in to do anonymous surveys. And so if there is a way going forward that we can look into some option for that, I would encourage us to do that.
Anything else for Parks and Rec? All right, Finance, Director Giglieri.
Lisa, for the for the financials, for the sales tax revenue that was in the packet, for on first page for where it says sales tax, is that without the rec center included?
You're talking about the sales tax revenues comparison report?
Yes.
Yes, that excludes the recs, the additional sales tax revenue. We wanted it to be really comparative year over to year, so that's excluding that. Okay. And we'll add a note next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for Finance? All right. And finally, police. I believe Captain Jacobson is here this evening. Captain, good evening.
Good evening. Nothing further from the police department unless there's any specific questions.
Looks not. I did want to thank you. Appreciated the invitation to the promotion ceremony for the new sergeant and the two officers that were sworn in, as well as the promotion of Jessica Gibson, who I think we all know quite well. So appreciated the invite to that. Thank you. All right. Anything before we move on to our regular business? All right. We will begin then with item 7A, Resolution 22, Series 2026, a resolution appointing Renzo Bianchi to the Timnath Planning Commission and Mara Johnson as an alternate member. Ms. Steffel.
Thank you. We're going to do without the slide. I think it's might be in the wrong spot. So we do have this resolution. As you know, the members of the Planning Commission are appointed by council, and the Renzo Bianchi is currently an alternate member. The way that the town typically does it is to have there are two alternate members and then the most senior alternate member, as long as they're interested in and performing well, is recommended to be appointed as a more long-term member and a regular voting member of the Planning Commission. As an alternate, they only vote when there's a vacancy, and then they vote in place of the person who's not attending the meeting. So Renzo Bianchi is interested in proceeding to be appointed as a member of the Planning Commission, a regular permanent member, and he would serve until March 31st, 2029. The second person then that would leave a vacancy for an alternate, and so the town did go out and publish a request for people to submit applications, received a good number of applications, ended up interviewing I think at least 5 members, and found several very qualified candidates. And the committee that reviewed the applicants did recommend Mara Johnson as the alternate member, noting that there were many other qualified candidates as well, but did recommend unanimously that she be appointed. And so she would be appointed as an alternate again to serve until March 31st, 2029, with the thought that once, if a permanent position became available, she may kind of internally promote up to eventually be a regular member of Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Steffel. And before we move on this, let me first thank Michael Lowry, who has been on our Planning Commission for several years and had to step away to attend to other life matters, but I definitely did want to thank him for his service to the Planning Commission. And then Renzo Bianchi, who is here. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time as an alternate. I know it's always, good to step up to the full voting membership, and you've served us well. I know there've been occasions that as an alternate you have been able to vote. So thank you. Is there anything that you would like to say or share with council before we vote on this? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. And then, as Ms. Steffel mentioned, we did have 8 applicants to fill the alternate position. Had just really wonderful conversations. It's always great to just meet all the wonderful folks we have in this community that really want to contribute and continue to make this the best place to live in northern Colorado. We have an embarrassment of riches to choose from, and so there are definitely some folks on that list that should another vacancy come up, they will be right at the top of our Rolodex. But the committee did unanimously recommend Ms. Mara Johnson to fill the alternate spot. Ms. Johnson's here. Is there anything that you would like to say before we vote? Very good, thank you. Council, any questions for Ms. Steffel, or? All right. Then, is there a motion to approve the resolution appointing Renzo Bianchi to the Timnath Planning Commission and Mara Johnson as an alternate member?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Councilmember Holt?
No, I just thank you both. Have been one of many up here to serve in the Planning Commission. It is a amazing part of the community. Phil runs a tight ship over there, so you always know that you're in good hands. But thank you both for stepping up and giving back to the community, and hopefully we see both of your faces either in Planning Commission or keep moving on up for many years to come. But thanks.
Yeah, I'll echo many of the comments made. Thank you for stepping up and contributing to our community. It really matters, so thank you.
Ditto.
All right, very well then. All those in favor of the resolution appointing Renzo Bianchi and Mara Johnson signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? It passes unanimously. Thank you and welcome. All right, on to item 7B, resolution number 21, series 2026, a resolution approving the independent contractor agreement with Barker Rinker CCAT Architecture Incorporated for architect engineer services for the planning, design, and construction of the Timnath Rec Center. Director Excel.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I'm excited to bring a major step forward in bringing the Community Recreation Center to fruition with the Architect Engineering Services Agreement with Barker Rinker CCAT. The independent contractor agreement with Barker Rinker CCAT Inc. is for the planning, design, and the construction of the Timnath Recreation Center. And just to give you the background, as part of the PROS Master Plan public engagement process, our community voiced a strong interest in a recreation center. And as such, the town added a rec center feasibility study to the scope of the PROS Master Plan that was eventually adopted in May of 2025. And then that summer, and through public opinion poll that went out to all registered voters of Timnath over the summer, the community again gave strong support for a recreation center. And it was confirmed in November of 2025 when the town residents voted in favor of a 1.25% sales and use tax to design and construct a rec center. And so hiring an architect for design and engineering services is the next step. So for procurement, an RFQ was issued on December 1st, 2025, and we received 13 responses to that RFQ. A team of town staff, there was 8 town staff, reviewed and scored all 13 responses, and we created a short list of 3 firms. We in turn then sent an RFP out to the 3 firms for pricing, and then we also got all 3 firms did submit a response. The committee also interviewed all 3 firms on February 26, 2026, and it was determined the proposal submitted by Barker Rinker CCAT Architecture was the most advantageous to the town after considering both price and non-price evaluation criteria. So who is Barker Rinker CCAT? They're an industry leader known for building community recreation center projects and indoor aquatic facilities. They were a 2025 AIA Carl Firm of the Year. They have 50 years in the industry focusing on recreation projects. There's 350 community recreation projects nationwide, over 75 in Colorado. And if you look, some of these are local. Berthoud Recreation Center, Erie Community Center, Erie Recreation, or Eaton Recreation Center, and they're currently finishing up a rather large rec center that's similar to what we have proposed in Grand Junction, and Barker Rinker CCAT is completing that. So with that saying, I don't know if you have any questions, but we recommend that you approve the resolution.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
So, Tom, thank you for putting all this together. It was a lot of work, so I really appreciate it. I appreciate that this appears to be a credible and thorough process, first and most importantly. I appreciate BRS appears to be well qualified. Looking through here, I continue to like that there's community feedback. I like the card game that they had put together. At a high level, looking through this, can you kind of walk me through maybe how the scoring went, like how much higher, looking at this, that BRS was compared to the other finalists?
So I don't have the scoring in front of me, but it was pretty close between the three firms that we did. But with Barker Raker's experience, we felt like they were the best fit for this program, especially when you build indoor pools. There's a lot of technical aspects. One of the second firm that was second, they're a local firm, but they didn't have the same depth of experience that Barker Raker CCAT has, and so we just felt that through the scoring process, and I don't have the breakdown. You guys have some of the breakdown within your packets. You don't have the exact scoring, but it was close in the end where Barker Raker CCAT scored just a bit higher than the other two firms.
Okay. Sorry if I missed that breakdown in there. I apologize, Tom.
Doesn't
So-
have the actual scoring from staff, but it shows the scoring
Yep.
criteria that we used, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then as we kind of move forward in the design and development process, maybe you can help me understand this. As we look at the future decision points, and what will come back to council, what should we see come back to council in those parts of the process, and what will remain at the staff level for this? Like, as we look through the budget and we see the 5 million that comes across, what will come back to council? What will continue to stay like in that 5 million? Will it all just flow through as long as within that $5 million in this budget?
Yeah, so that would be for the platting of the land, and then that takes us from schematic design to all the way through construction, and that actually takes us even through the construction process.
Okay.
With construction management, and also with our CMGC.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then is there a motion to approve a resolution approving the independent contractor agreement with Barker Rinker CCAT for Arctic engineer services for the planning, design, and construction of the Timnath Rec Center?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion, Councilmember Lake.
I just want to say how excited I am. I know that it will be somewhat of a long process, but this is definitely a first step. And I'm actually happy of how quickly it happened after the election to kind of get this started. So keep up the good work, and I will be sad to not be on council to see it progress over the next 2 years.
We have some openings on Prost.
Maybe in the future. I just want my name on the building or in the building on the plaque because my name is inside this one and inside the police building. So I know that staff are working on something that's my hope.
Councilmember Holt.
No, again, I mean, I echo the amount of work in a short period of time. We've all seen this name several times. I think their work speaks for itself. The handful of names you just put up there of Eaton and Berthoud and the other facilities are top-notch facilities, ones that we went and toured ourselves looking at this process. So I definitely think we picked the right partner. Again, I'm like Lisa, a kid at Christmas. Now I want to see it. So excited to see the whole process unfold. But yeah, I'm full support of this.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for getting this together so quickly, Tom. It's amazing work. I thought this was a really well put together proposal. So I look forward to what's coming.
It was a team effort. So Stephanie over there, she's been kicking butt, keeping us in line too with the process.
I also am very much in support of this. I appreciate the 8 staff members that reviewed all of the proposals through the RFP and RFQ process. I am very impressed with the Barker Rinker CCAT proposal. They are a firm that stood out amongst the 3 finalists in their expertise in rec centers. And it is really comforting to know that they have done some work here locally, and I've been inside several of those facilities, and I think we can move forward with confidence there. There was, of the three finalist firms, one was local, but did not have, they had a broad portfolio, but didn't specialize in the way that this firm specializes in a rec center. The other firm also had a nice rec center portfolio, but the Barker Rinker CCAT proposal really stood out in terms of its quality, but also in terms of the plan for collaboration. And as just Luke mentioned, the card game exercise is just one example. But I'm really excited to have these folks on board, and can't wait to get started. So thank you, everyone. Anything else? Okay, then all those in favor of approving the resolution appointing Barker Rinker CCAT as architecture engineer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Passes unanimously. We will now move on to our public hearing items. We have two of them this evening, beginning with item 8A, resolution number 18, series 2026, resolution approving the Ladera South subdivision final plat. Mr. Jones, there you are.
Good evening. So we're here to go over the final plat approval for the Ladera South subdivision. And to date, just to kind of give you a recap, the sketch plan was approved by Town Council on February 25th, 2025. The preliminary plat was approved by Town Council on September 23rd, 2025. And then this final plat went to the Planning Commission on February 17th, 2026, last month, with a recommendation of approval. And so we're here tonight to do the council hearing on the matter. As you probably are all very familiar, the site is shown in the shaded green area on the image. I think we're all familiar with it. Where we are in the process, on our graph there, we're in a major subdivision. We're at the final plat stage, and as I went through those dates, we've already gone through the sketch plan, the preliminary. So the final plat is kind of the last step in creating the lots, and then once the lots are created, then we'll have a series of site plan applications for each individual buildings or buildings on each individual lot. So and those will then go to the Planning Commission for those decisions. So this is the kind of the main big last piece of this that you'll see, unless there's other like appeals or that sort of thing in the future. The zoning is regional commercial, and it has a PD overlay that applies here as well. And then within our comprehensive plan, future land use map, it's consistent with the zoning of regional commercial. It's designated as the employment/regional commercial land use designation. This is just a diagram of the approved sketch plan and all of the different areas and anticipated uses and densities within each of those areas that as we progress to the site plan phase after the lots are created, we'll keep referring back to this sketch plan. But this final plat application is consistent with the approved sketch plan. So just one little point of clarification. Within Ladera, there's the original Ladera subdivision, and then this is a different name. It's the Ladera South subdivision. So everything that's in the tan area is Ladera South. Everything within the purple outlines is the Ladera second and third filings. Just a point of clarification, a portion of the Ladera third filing is being replatted in lots 1 and 2 of this filing, in the northern parts of lots 1 and 2 of this filing. And so there's a little bit of overlap there. Basically, there's 9 lots that are shown in this pink color. There's 2 outlots in the green color as part of the plat here, and then there's 4 tracts in the light blue color. The tracts are anticipated to be platted again in the future. They just aren't quite far enough along to know what those lots would be just yet, so they are tracts anticipated just for future development that need to be consistent with the sketch plan. But at this point, they are just left as tracts for coming back to us in the future. So depending on if any of those are major subdivisions, you'll see major subdivisions again. If it's a minor subdivision or a administrative plat, you probably won't see those. So if you recall, one of our major points of conversation at the preliminary plat hearing was that staff had suggested and council had supported a condition that we work with the applicant to ensure that this section on parks and open space 5.7.6 section 3 where it says open space uses designated within the open space shall be appropriate to the context and character of the site and the intensity of the proposed development as determined by the town planner. At that point at the preliminary plat, we had said that that's really a final plat issue, but we just wanted to have that condition at that time because at that time we weren't comfortable from a staff level that they had quite got to that level of amenities as of yet, but we are comfortable now. We did work through and got to that level of comfort. I just wanted to go through kind of the 10 amenities that they have within that northern open space that kind of gave us that level of comfort. They've got, and they added the items 1, 2, and 3 since preliminary, which is there's a trailhead at the end of Sweatsville Zoo that has kind of a wall entry feature. There's a parking area that kind of over by their pump house at the end of Vista del Pico Drive that also gives access to any of the residents or citizens that want to go and park and enjoy that open space. They've added a wildlife viewing area with benches along the side of the reservoir. And then what they had before is still being proposed, which is a series of a network of 10-foot wide concrete trails throughout the open space and a loop crusher find trail around the reservoir, variety of pet wait stations and interpretive nature placards and trailside benches, picnic tables, and trash cans. So those were proposed before at preliminary and are still there. So with all 10 of those, staff feels comfortable that they are satisfying that open space requirement of the amenities being appropriate for the context of the development. With that, the final plat has 3 review criteria, which we've reviewed the application against, and we feel they've met these criteria. Basically, that the first criteria being that the application is consistent with the preliminary plat. Second is basically that it complies with the land use code in all of the applicable areas. We feel it does. And then the third is that all the technical standards have been met, such as Larimer County Urban Area Street Standards, or LUCAS, and the town's technical criteria manual. So it's been reviewed against that. And so we're at that point where we think they're ready for prime time, ready for an approval. We've spent some time recently going through the master subdivision improvement agreement. We've got a draft that is getting really close to being finalized. This includes 14 pages of the agreement itself. It starts off with kind of our standard template, and then we tweak the language as appropriate for the individual circumstances of any given development. And then we've got a series of exhibits that that the applicant needs to give us kind of the background property. So it starts with property description. We've got estimation of on-site and off-site improvement costs, and then the approved landscape and construction documents that are part of the plat become exhibits in this subdivision agreement. And then a couple of new ones. There's a trail operation and maintenance plan and a weed management plan that are now kind of in what's required as the exhibits in this. And in particular, the weed management plan is a state law that is became a requirement that municipalities require a development to state and put in the agreement like how they're going to manage noxious weeds and prevent those from happening. So that's kind of a new one to us, and we're working through looking closely at what Larimer County does. Larimer County's been regulating weeds for a long time, and so we've got quite a bit of resources there to tap into. But so really we're down to, I think we got 3 conditions. First one is the standard condition, which is just that allows the staff to work with the owner to address minor modifications prior to signatures. And then the second one is specific to the subdivision improvement agreement that just allows staff to work with the community development director and the town attorney to finalize the last refinements of that subdivision improvement agreement. And that third condition is that the approval would not become effective until that subdivision agreement is signed by both the applicant and the town. With that, the applicant has a presentation as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones.
Perfect. Well, good evening. My name is Steve Weens. I'm with the firm Stacklot. Behind me, we have a full contingent of the Ladera team to answer any questions that you guys may have. As Troy mentioned, we're subdividing approximately 160 acres with 9 lots, 4 tracks, and 2 open space systems. This slide represents our improvements on the northern open space system. As you can see, we're proposing a 10-foot wide multi-use trail system, native seed mix, entry wall features, benches, and picnic tables. Weitzel Street will also be improved with the full installment of landscape on the southern portion of it. The landscape is going to be installed in a pattern that matches the existing landscape on the north section, which is already installed. The only exception is the turf, which is on the north. The southern will be replaced with native grass to match Colorado's new functional turf requirements. With this slide, you can see a blow-up of the north open space system. As Troy mentioned, interpretive educational signage is being proposed throughout the open space system, which will include Colorado prairie education, migratory birds, sandhill cranes, prairie birds, project identification, and wayfinding signage. Each entry, as Troy mentioned again, will be defined by a stone entry wall system, and the southern entry point will have 3 guest parking spots for visitors. An observation deck is also proposed on the west side of the reservoir. The trail connections to the trail will provide connections to the future developments in Ladera and off-site, and the trail location and design is in compliance with the approved sketch plan. Benches and picnic tables are being provided along the trail for guests to enjoy, and each entry point will have pet way stations being provided. This slide represents the site furniture and entry features that we'll be providing. The top left is a plan view of the northern entry feature. The lower left is an elevation of the north entry feature. And on next to that is the south entry feature. And above are examples of our picnic tables, pet waste stations, trash receptacles, and benches. Thank you for having us. We're here to answer any questions you guys may have.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. Before we get to questions, this item is slated for public hearing. I don't believe anyone has signed up, but is there anyone present that would like to speak on this item? Don't see anyone, so we'll close that portion of the meeting. Council questions?
Troy, looking at, can you summarize, looking at this and, sorry, let me gather my thoughts here. For review criteria, can you summarize the basis for concluding that the utility and transportation capacity is adequate? I know they had put that in there and it just wasn't in the packet, but they did submit a traffic study. Is that correct?
Yes, there is, and I think I forwarded you the PDF, but it's like 78 pages or something like that. And so at some point we pick and choose the things to put in the packet so that it's not, 1,000 pages, and we, could have included that. It just didn't make the cut, but I was happy to share that with you or any other requests that we get from anybody along the way. That's certainly public information.
Yep. So they did run a traffic study. No concerns there from staff as far as the traffic study went.
That's correct. Vince with the Public Works Department and I, actually, your office right next to each other, and we've talked about it over and over, and it just was very consistent with what they've been saying all along, with some updates on some of the numbers as far as users and size of lots, and so it was really some small refinements from. We had a traffic study. I don't know, about eight to 10 months ago, that really kind of defined what the access points along Weitzel would be, and what that it needed medians and where the crosswalks were going to be. And so this, I think, just adds a level of detail to where they were 10 months ago on that. And as site plans come in, it will be refined more because they'll know the specific users at this point. A lot of it's their best guess as to how many trips will be with each lot, just because they haven't sold most of them yet.
Okay.
Just let me elaborate on that. So as we get to the stage, we did have the original study that was done in 21. Like was mentioned, when we did the access control plan, we had them do another study, and we just had this last look now that we're at the final stages. We also had them look at Weitzel Harmony. We had them look at the roundabout that's internal to the site, and we also had them look at County Road 5 and Weitzel. So we did look all that. It does meet all the standards. For Lucas, which has a criteria mainly for intersections, it's levels of service. So they did meet all that criteria. I don't know if you have any other questions, but we did
So as site
evaluate
users come in, then we'll reevaluate as the site users come in?
Yeah, usually what we have is what's called a compliance letter, but this is a really good best guess of what because now we have platted lots. We have a little more detail than the previous stages.
Perfect.
But we still have that double check, that checks and balances at the end.
Okay.
That we look at this, and also even with these kind of projects that take some time, that's good, because with each traffic study, it calibrates itself. We look at what the existing background traffic is, and what the proposed uses are. So even moving forward, we still have a good handle in looking at the site, making sure that their traffic impacts are still meet our standards.
Okay, perfect. And for my education on this, with the subdivision improvement agreement, would that affect any of the review criteria that we're looking at tonight? Like, is there anything that you're looking at? So we have the review criteria that's in our packet here, like 1, 2, and 3, is that gonna affect any of those that we're looking at tonight because that subdivision of improvement agreement is not done? Is there anything that might be impacted based on our review tonight?
You know, those type of items that are code criteria is what we've already looked at. So we're looking at things like, you know, their estimation of costs, and then how are they going to guarantee certain improvements with a bond and that sort of thing. I don't think there's any like review criteria that are kind of undetermined as of yet. These are just the implementation of, you know, what are they obligated to do with this approval? What are they on the hook for? They and their business improvement district and their metro districts as they move forward. So it's clear what their responsibilities are, and then what the town's responsibilities are within that. Just an agreement between the two parties, basically.
Okay, thank you.
I guess, and you've hinted towards it. I just want to make maybe more of a point of clarification. I mean, the pictures up here, I know this was in front of us a couple months back, and there was some back and forth between staff and applicant. Seems like all of the staff's wants, needs, desires on the open space have been met. Am I safe to say that? Okay. Any concern? It just jumped out at me. I don't know that I had a thought going into this one way or the other, but with 3 parking spaces on either side, is something like this open space going to require, or what are the requirements for open space when it comes to parking, and is that adequate considering there's going to be a ton of parking throughout the entire?
Yeah, that's a good question. We mulled that over quite a bit and had quite a few conversations about that with the team. But one of the things that we think is a good solution to that is that they have a parking agreement with all of their lots as they sell our covenant that runs with each lot, that they have cross parking agreements so that they can't exclude anybody that wants to go to the open space from parking on an adjacent parking lot for one of those businesses. And so that provides for a lot of kind of overlap parking. So we're not just having parking spaces that are exclusive to one use or another, but they can
Throughout
share.
the whole neighborhood.
Except for floor and decor, because they came in before that. But other than floor and decor, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everywhere else in Ladera will have that parking agreement, yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's open space. People, it's probably not a destination spot to go here with all the other open spaces, but, I mean, at least having a couple spots is good. So that was just more of my clarification, is making sure that we check the boxes from what was previously there, because it looks great.
I had a question on the multi-use path width, and I'll preface this by saying 10-foot is the town standard under 575. But as I was researching this, there are some standards that seem to suggest an 11-foot width is appropriate on multi-use trails. Again, they're in compliance with the standard here, but I know we have land use code updates and stuff coming. Is that something that we've looked at in terms of our standard there? Or
The 11-foot?
have we found that 10-foot is adequate?
Yeah, I hadn't discovered the 11-foot anywhere, but the 10-foot was what I was finding when I did my review. But
and I've seen both, so I just have we been satisfied with 10-foot as the, and of course the Pooter Trail hasn't gotten busy yet. It'll get busy here in a month, possibly, but.
That's a good question. Have any thoughts on that, Justin?
No, for multi-use trails, usually 8 foot's the minimum, but 10 feet's recommended, and that's typically what most places do. 11 foot seems odd to me, so I don't know if that was a typo maybe, or maybe it was a metric conversion or something, but.
No,
I've
I found it in a couple places, and the theory behind it was a bicyclist typically takes up 5 feet, and so to give adequate.
Buffer.
But we could definitely work with planning to make sure not only the technical criteria, Lucas, but also whatever's in the land use code agrees and looks at that.
And I don't know what our neighboring jurisdictions are doing. Okay. The only question I had, any others? All righty. If there are no more questions, is there a motion to approve the Ladera South subdivision final plat with 3 conditions to allow staff to work with our applicant to address minor non-substantive modifications on final plat approval, allow staff to work with the owner applicant to finalize subdivision improvement agreement to meet town requirements, subject to final approval by the community development director and town attorney, and that subdivision improvement agreement must be signed by both parties prior to recording the final plat.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I just want to thank staff and applicant for working on that open space area. I remember the conversation we had up here, and I like that a lot of it is going to be the natural grasses and things like that. I think that whole area is kind of, I remember that it's in like a floodplain area, and so I think using some of that will definitely make sense. Parking, I don't think will be an issue as well, especially being able to use some of the other areas. And it looks like it meets all 3 of the criteria that we use to look at these applications, and so I will be in support.
Yeah. Based on the review criteria and then the recommendations from staff, I'm going to support this tonight.
Yeah, I'll also echo, I mean, it definitely meets all the criteria requirements. I also echo what Councilmember Lake said on applicant and staff working together. Having been inside in the back playground of Respite, I think this open space is going to do nothing but even improve that play area, the visuals of it, the walking path. It's all blending well. Happy to see this project, although it be slow. I'm sure you guys want it faster, coming together, and each time it honestly gets better, I think, every time it comes up here. So kudos, guys.
I'm supportive. When this came to us for preliminary, the primary issue was some of those open space amenities, and sounds like staff is pleased with where we've ended up there, so I will support it. All right, then all those in favor of the resolution with the 3 stated conditions as read signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? All right, it passes unanimously. Our final agenda item for the evening, item 8B, ordinance number 7, series 2026, an ordinance concerning the financing of the acquisition and construction of a rec center, associated amenities and supporting public improvements, and in connection therewith, authorizing the execution and delivery by the town of a site lease agreement, a lease purchase agreement, and other documents related thereto, and providing other matters related thereto. All right, and Carolyn, we determined that you did not write that title, right?
That's correct.
Scagliardi, it's all yours.
Good evening, thank you. We are here for the public hearing related to the rec center financing. Just to give a little background, this process, as far as the financing goes, started almost a year ago. We engaged our municipal advisor, UMB Bank, on April 8th, 2025. We approved the bond council engagement on May 27th. Finance Committee reviewed the overall financing plan in June of 2025. Subsequently, we had the election in November. Council approved the underwriting engagements in February. And now we have the ordinance authorizing the lease purchase agreement. This ordinance sets parameters for which we will issue the COPs, and the lease purchase agreement is in your packet, approved as to form in the ordinance. We do have a target closing date of May 20th, 2026, and this is in alignment with when we'll start expending funds. The design firm was just awarded previously, and we'll have the CMGC coming in the next meeting. The certificates of participation are for design and construction of the rec center. They'll be paid from the 1.25% increase in sales and use tax. The leased property will be the future recreation center, and no further collateral will be needed by the town. The parameters are a lease term for 30 years. The aggregate principal of lease shall not exceed $92 million. Annual lease payments shall not exceed $6.9 million. And the effective interest rate shall not exceed 5.4. So those are the parameters that you'll be authorizing tonight. Those are parameters, so that gives us some flexibility. They're likely to come in much lower than that. The financing team is made up of our municipal advisor, Melissa Buck, with UMB Financial Services. She's online if you have any questions. We have an underwriter team with Stifel and RBC, and we have Stacy Mast with Stifel here if you have any questions. And I believe we have 3 representatives from Butler Snow as well, if there's any questions related to the items in your packet.
All right. Thank you. Before we move to questions, this item is slated for a public hearing. Nobody signed up, but I'll ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak on this. See no one, so we can move on to questions. Council. I think Luke's getting his questions ready, but maybe I can ask a simple one. We're doing this as a COP. If you do it as a COP, you have to do this lease agreement. But whoever is the best qualified, can you help us understand why this financing mechanism makes the most sense?
It gives us flexibility in that we didn't have to get voter approval to authorize debt. It also utilizes the collateral of the future rec center without us having to collateralize anything else. And it is a lease purchase agreement, so it's subject to appropriation. So every year you'll have to appropriate the funds in order for us to pay the lease. There is also advantages in that we can prepay after 10 years without penalty. We built that into the pro forma. If sales tax increases, we'll be able to prepay it early.
And, you know, someone may hear, what do you mean you don't have to get voter approval? Philosophically, are we comfortable that the fact that voters approve the tax increase is sufficient public sentiment that moving forward with this seems appropriate?
Yes, and I believe even in the ballot language it said something about how we were going to finance, or no? I don't remember, no.
I don't think so, but yeah, I feel very comfortable with it because the voter approval is a requirement under the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, which was an amendment to the Colorado Constitution. It's and it requires voter approval before you have a multiple fiscal year obligation. When we say this is subject to annual appropriation, each year the town is going to make the determination whether they want to appropriate the funds to make that additional payment. Now, I mean, you know, you're leasing the site, so there are consequences if you don't make the payment, but we're not pledging the money specifically for that purpose, where it's subject to each year that determination whether you want to continue with the lease. So this is a very standard form of financing in the state that does not require the voter approval for that reason. So the voters were not asked to approve this debt, but as you know, they did approve the 1.25% sales tax for the rec center purpose, which we are projecting will have enough revenue to make all the payments under this debt.
Is this similar or different to how we moved forward on broadband?
Broadband we paid as you go, so we used reserves. It's similar to how we financed this building. So every year you appropriate funds to pay the lease payment on this building, and that this expires in 2030. It's very common for facility projects in the state of Colorado.
And then we wouldn't have had reserves to do this, but for...
Yeah, absolutely. We did not have enough. Mm-hmm.
Mayor Pro Tem.
What would happen, Lisa, if revenue underperforms? What would be the town's fallback?
You can use general fund reserves and fill any backfill to make that payment.
In this, see we put a maximum of 5.4%. That's our maximum. So it's possible we could get a better rate.
Yes.
That'd be our goal.
Yeah, that would definitely be our goal.
Yes, based on current interest rates, we anticipate it will be under 5%.
Under 5%. Okay.
Hi, Stacy Mast with Stifel. We're serving as underwriter.
Okay. So we're kind of setting our cap of what we would do today, and we're hoping for less. Be awesome. And so what happens if we failed to appropriate, like we're putting the actual piece of property up? What happens if we failed? Would they come and get the rec center? Would they take it away from us? Just asking those questions today,
Yes,
because
they
that's
could.
what's in the lease agreement.
Yes, they could.
They could come and take it. Okay.
But if this is Melissa Buck with UMB, if I could just make one clarification to that.
Yeah.
It would only be for the term of the lease. So you would get it back after the lease. And presumably, you know, the trustee, they would take possession of the rec center, and they might release it out or something along those lines. But let's say the lease ends in 2056 or 2055. After that, you would get it back.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay. Those are my questions. I just wanted to ask worst case scenario questions.
Any other questions?
This is Dean Hurt from Butler Snow. Can I add just one little nuance to this?
Please.
So the the site lease is technically 10 years longer than the lease. And so whatever the term of the site lease is technically how long the trustee would potentially have to lease out the rec center. And so the lease goes out as long as your base rentals payments, and assuming the town pays all of the base rentals payments on time, then the lease and the site lease and just the whole deal kind of terminates upon the final payment. But if there is non-appropriation, the trustee would have an additional 10 years to try to make its money back.
I would just like to say as a comment, I'm talking worst case scenario, but I know in this process, we budgeted very conservatively. Like I said that in our candidate forum, and I'll say it again. I'm proud of what the town does and how conservatively we run our estimates. So I just wanted to say that on record of worst case scenario, but I'm proud of what town manager has done and what our director of finance has done. So I just want to say that. I just wanted to put that. As we talked through this and I read through this, I wanted to ask those questions.
Thanks for scaring us.
I guess the only question I have, being that it's a lease and being that it's allocated every year, right, or it's up for reconsideration every year, what is the potential ramification if a whole new council comes 5 years down the road and says we're anti-rec center and doesn't want to keep paying it anymore?
I can jump in on that one. The ballot language commits the funds to the rec center, so they wouldn't be able to reappropriate it any other place. Perfect. So there's really no incentive to doing that. You can't use it to build roads. You can't use it to get more positions. It has to be used for this purpose.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. If there are no more questions, then is there a motion to approve the ordinance concerning the financing of the acquisition and construction of the rec center with associated amenities and supporting public improvements in connection therewith, authorizing the execution delivery by the town of a site lease agreement, a lease purchase agreement, and other documents related thereto, and providing other matters related thereto?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I know I talked worst case scenario, but this is to me where a lot of the hard work comes in. I know we did the contracting work tonight, but this is really important stuff for me, and I want to thank Lisa for her hard work and the finance department and the accounting department because this is going to be huge again for everything that we do for this town and for our residents. And this is kind of how we get it going. So thank you, Lisa. I appreciate all your hard work. I'll be voting in support of it.
I think this just makes sense for what we have to do to get it paid, and so I will also be in support of it. And then as far as the title goes, I may have to make a resolution before my time on council is up to limit the number of characters used in the resolutions and ordinances.
I would just say, very similar to Luke, being part of the finance committee, seeing this process over the last several months, the amount of work that went into it is awesome. The conservative approach that we take, worst case scenarios are still appealing, knowing that we've got a team fighting for us to get the best case scenario for the residents for as long as this is, and as much money as this is very relieving, knowing that's out there and that you guys are constantly fighting to get us the best thing possible. So appreciate that. And again, I mean, this is something that the town and the residents wanted. This is the biggest step in making it happen, and therefore the amount of work went into it. So, the questions are much warranted, but phenomenal work.
I also am in full support. I'm so excited that we're here today. I appreciate all the work that went into researching the options, and I'm confident that this is the best way to go. So thank you, Lisa, and everyone else that helped out. Anything else before we move on? I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this. I figure if we're going to borrow upwards of $100 million, we should all support it. So express our support individually. So Salapez, would you take a roll call vote for those in favor and opposed to the ordinance?
Mayor Robert Axmacher,
I vote yay.
Mayor Pro Tem Luke Wagner,
Yes.
Council Member Jeremy Holt,
Yes.
Council Member Bill Jenkins, Council Member Lisa Lake.
Yes.
All right, it passes 4-0. All right. Council, I believe we've run out of things to talk about, so if there's no objection, we can stand.